My guest is a comedian, writer, and voice actor from Seattle. He has a comedy special on Drew Barth titled Shoulda Tried Harder and performs regularly all along the West Coast. I'm excited to welcome Drew Barth.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
This is episode 100, actually. So,
really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I get the honor.
I was stoked. Shit, sorry. I got to get... I drink a lot during episodes. So. And before we start, actually, I do have to say one thing. Anybody that's watching on YouTube, I think I have this figured out with the cameras, but one of my cameras, the guest camera, was getting super fuzzy. And when I got the second one, I was like, oh, I think it's just like a difference in the models. It was user error completely.
Oh, I thought maybe your guest was just slipping out of focus, kind of partway through. It was the guest getting like drunk and faded?
It was just like soft lines. So there was one episode 98, that's coming out tomorrow, I think, or on Monday. I look fantastic. Like, you can see all the lines in my face, but the guest just looks like kind of like Michelin Man-y, and I feel terrible. But it's like, I wish it was the other way, because like, I'm on all the episodes, you know?
Right, we've seen you.
Yes.
But we need the coarse outlines and the rigid jaw lines of all your guests. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So you and I worked together, I think, like 6 months ago at last?
I think, yeah, about so.
And we worked with John Gard. I tried to get him to come through today, but he, like, it's his wife's birthday weekend or something, and he was going to bail on it. Oh. And I was like, I think you probably should spend it with your wife.
Yeah.
Like, I think Drew will understand.
Yeah. Honestly, if it has anything to do with just and especially if somebody says they have like a birthday weekend, then that's the kind of person that probably will notice if you just try and kind of mail in an effort on a birthday celebration.
For sure. When it becomes multiple days.
Yeah. Well, it's like, well, are you sure you want to interrupt Birthday Fest 21? That's fine. That's cool. I mean, you know, you can get me on the Silver Jubilee next year. So that's... Although I actually did want to do with my wife, unfortunately the pandemic made it hard, but I wanted to start doing a thing because we got married in 2016. And since our anniversary would always be the Olympics year, to just do every 4 years to do something called the US Olympics and do like 3 weeks of dating and like events that are kind of like reflective of our relationship thus far, give out medals and things like that at the end. So yeah, but that didn't happen. So fuck it. We'll just you
still got 2024.
Yeah, and I guess they're gonna, that's true. We could do a winter one, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know. We haven't gotten the host city to sign off yet, and I don't want to interrupt their traffic flow. So we'll see if we can get the paperwork. It's getting really political now. I think we're gonna go to Qatar. I think that's where we're gonna head for the next one, or Qatar. I don't know how you pronounce it.
I don't either.
I don't know. I know a lot of people most people who are there don't want to be there. So.
Yeah, that's true. So I had you come on today. This is a big change of pace here, but like part of your act, you talk about this, and it was 3 years ago that you had a pretty very serious accident happen to you. And I don't want to spoil it right now, so that's going to be towards the end of the episode. So if you're liking this so far, you better hang around, because it's probably one of the craziest stories that we've had on the pod. But Drew has been in comedy in Seattle for since 2003 or something?
Yeah. I mean, the first time I ever actually performed was in high school in Bellevue, Washington in 2001. And then when I went to University of Washington next year, that's when I started performing at Giggles. So 2002.
Okay. And wait, where in Bellevue did you perform?
Literally in my high school. It was in my high school talent show.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. I figured, I think the rationale was like, I don't think there are enough reasons why my classmates could criticize me. So why don't I just go up and try stand-up comedy in a senior talent show? And it was, I don't know. I have no idea why I was compelled to do it. It was partially because I was in like a sketch comedy group. Okay. And when I was submitting scripts to our drama teacher advisor, he's like, some of these scripts that you're writing, they don't really read so much like sketches. It's almost more like stand-up. Have you ever thought about trying stand-up? And it was something I always really loved. And it was something my dad and I shared and everything. So I literally went with my brother and tried to write like 5 minutes of stand-up and performed it at an audition, got in, did the talent show, and then it wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible either. It
Well,
was like,
do you remember like what any of your material was?
yes, I talked about going,
Because that's a tough show to begin with, right?
hell
like
yes.
it's all your peers the first time you're doing like that's not an easy.
no, but I do remember the first thing that I went up with, and I said, because it was in the little theater auditorium at our high school, but we didn't have a larger theater. So I just went up and I was like, it's great to perform here in the little theater. After 4 years, I'm still looking for the big theater. And it was like just enough to get a laugh. And I was like, okay, this might kind of work. And then I remember just getting to the very end and going outside like the hallway kind of thing, and just being like, holy shit, what was that?
Oh yeah.
And
I was just having a conversation with somebody about that. Like the first time I did stand up, it was here at Tony V's in Everett. And literally we're probably 15 minutes away. My driving foot would not stop vibrating on the whole way home. Like I didn't eat shit, but it felt like I got away with like murder almost. Like
right.
Just, and it's that adrenaline, like especially the first time, but it's still, I mean, the right show, the right crowd and stuff. Like you walk off just feeling amazing. Like
it's very real. Like I feel like I'm like, I've done enough drugs to know what a drug feels like, and that's what a drug feels like.
Yeah, as someone in recovery, it's definitely
exactly. That like sure, there is something about it that is just truly unique, and I wanted to go and get it again.
Yeah. And so who were your influences?
So during the pandemic, I've been watching a lot of Seinfeld with my wife.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing kind of how much I probably was impression upon by Jerry Seinfeld, and just kind of very observational, kind of little, very minutia types of things, and just kind of finding little humorous things about him that were also very just surface and just kind of right there.
It's so weird. Do you watch Curb though?
No, I don't.
Okay. You should watch Curb if you like Seinfeld, because it's very interesting to see the division between Larry David and Jerry.
You see, exactly. That's which I think is so fascinating. And as I was getting my wife into Seinfeld, because she just kind of never really followed it when she was younger. Then as we kind of got through it, then we're chatting about like, well, should we watch Curb Your Enthusiasm now? And then she's like, isn't that the one where it's Larry David mostly? And I was like, yeah. And then we're chatting and we're like, it's going to be George the whole time. And as we were watching, she's like, George is the character I have the hardest time with. Like, and it's one of the ones that like time is just not super gentle to George.
Yeah.
And I think it would be too much for her to kind of go in on. But I also just want to be part of the zeitgeist and kind of I know how incredibly good it is as well.
It's so weird watching, because you like the flavor is, you recognize the flavor, but it's so different having that be the key point of view versus what Seinfeld is. But both on their own, I think are like one of my buddies in high school got me into Curb, and I didn't know who Larry David was, but I had seen Seinfeld. I'm like, what is it? Like, this feels like Seinfeld, but I don't know. It's really good. And it's gotten, I mean, some of the more recent stuff is really good. So even if your wife's not down, like I would sneak that on the side.
I did see an interview with Jason Alexander, and they were asking him about when he was first starting Seinfeld, and he said, I had a hard time getting my hands kind of on what the character of George actually was. So I just kind of had Woody Allen in my mind initially for the first few episodes. And then I remember I was at a table read, and we read through this one episode, and George had some reaction to something where it just like, it was too much for me. So I went over and approached Larry, and I was like, Larry, I'm sorry, I just have an issue with this, because I can't imagine that another human being would actually do this. And Larry's like, what are you talking about? This happened to me 2 weeks ago. And it's like, oh, okay. And it just became immediately clear. He's like, this is you. Okay. All right. So I just have to play you the whole time. Got it. Clicked. Not a problem.
It's so Larry David, like I'm very curious, like I would love to meet Larry David, just from not like a star thing, but like just to see if this is like really how he is.
It's I just think like your resting 100%. Mode. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like, this seems so incredibly genuine. You've got to be like this all the time. Yeah. It's got to be just taxing to everybody
one
else.
of the strongest point of views of anyone in comedy.
It's true.
For sure.
It's true. I mean, it's practically like a commedia dell'arte character where he's just like so caricaturized by now, but he lives completely in it. And also, when you have that much money, you can be exactly who you want to be.
Oh, for sure. It's ridiculous. So back to like your start though. So you had influences of Seinfeld. You did this talent show.
Seinfeld, yeah.
How old were you when you started? Like, I guess, what was the scene like when you came in? Because
So
I'm in it now.
Okay, so Laughs Comedy was initially Giggles Comedy Club.
Yeah.
Which that's where I went to and started going to open mics. And I think I actually went to exactly one comedy show before I started performing.
That's so crazy.
So it was kind of a strange thing.
But
like
you were young.
I was young. I was 20. I couldn't go into the bar. I couldn't sit in the bar. I had to kind of stand on the outside and everything. And then I remember being a part of a comedy competition that they had through Giggles, and I was 20. And one of the places that we had to go to perform was a casino, and I had to just kind of like sneak in the back, kind of to get up and on stage.
Yeah.
Just be like just kind of go in with the crowd. Nobody would really notice. But those early days were a lot of trading off, not getting paid for getting a decent amount of stage time though. And so my other kind of contemporaries at the time, the other person who was starting out, I remember going up right about a month after 9/11 was Fahim Anwar.
Oh, wow.
Who was incredibly funny, like just oozing talent. One of those people where you're watching and you're like, oh, okay, so that's what a famous person looks like when they're younger. Okay, cool, got it. But he was still wrestling whether or not he wanted to do it. And then being an Afghan comedian going up 2 months after 9/11, it was about as contentious of a place for him to kind of go up. But I don't know, he did a nice job.
So I have a buddy who's been on a few times that is friends with Fahim, and he mentioned that he went and saw Fahim in the green room after the show and said he just is completely different off stage, like just like quiet, calm.
Yeah.
Was he that way back then?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you see him, you would see him in the bar, and there was a good portion of time he can consider just not doing a stand-up anymore because his parents really wanted him to be. He was going to UW to be an engineer. Yeah. So he was really kind of being forced more towards that, and then he would get up on stage and he could dance, and he had just kind of this real sense of ease about everything we did that all of the other comedians were like, fuck, do not stop doing this. Not everybody can do what you do. And it just.
But was it stand-up really, or was it?
It was stand-up. Yeah. I mean, he was doing jokes, and it was just really good. It was just very effortless and very easy for him. He just was a natural, and you could tell that it also was like a lot of energy and types of jokes that maybe were kind of born out of having sort of a more rigid upbringing and everything. You could tell that like he was just this kind of fun kid that wanted to break out, but he would also be super quiet.
Yeah. Was it met with any hostility, like of more veteran comics that like weren't as good, or? Oh
yeah. Oh, it's. I think it always rankles people when somebody comes in who is just kind of that effortlessly good, kind of right out the gate.
Yeah.
And that charismatic and likable on stage. He just kind of it all just sort of worked for him. And I remember a couple other comedians, because then there would be small comedy competitions that were kind of going on around there, and be like, came with this fucking kid, he doesn't even know if he's going to do it full time, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And but if it's there, it just worked
for sure. Who else was like around at that time? Because like I was looking at when you did Sick, and like, was it like Roger Lazola and like that crop of guys, or was that after?
Well, yeah, but then there was also the thing where there was Giggles Comedy Club, and then there was the Comedy Underground, and it was very much a Sharks and the Jets kind of thing. Of just like, you just didn't go to the other clubs.
Really?
Yeah, you would just kind of be assigned a club, or kind of decide where you wanted to be a comedian starting out. And I chose Giggles because it was closer to where I was living, and I could walk there, and I was going to get more stage time. And then people would choose the Comedy Underground, and you would never really see a whole lot of intermixing of those comedians back at various other places. So then if you did show up at the Underground and be like, ooh, Giggles comic is here tonight, it was a weird kind of thing, because you had clubs fighting over the talent who just really wanted to get up and perform as much as they could.
For sure. And how much were you able to get up during that time? Was it every night or? I mean,
No. Typically, so you had the underground that would do an open mic on Monday, and then Giggles had an open mic on Thursday and Sundays, and that was probably it for most of it. And then Terry, who owned Giggles, would basically, in lieu of paying features, would just give you time to feature, which is kind of how I managed to get a whole bunch of experience, was just working 20 minutes at a time while opening for Jim Gaffigan or something. So
yeah, that system's still kind of in place at last. Like there's compensation, but it's been huge in terms of development.
Yeah.
And to get to watch like headliners, that's the thing that I don't think a lot of people. I mean, you talk about not seeing shows. You saw one show before you start. Like, there's a lot of people that just don't see headlining comics.
Sure. Yeah.
And to not see where that bar is.
Yeah.
It's very, without the context, people can walk around and be like, yeah, I'm really good. It's like, that's what's really good. Like to kill for 45 minutes and then do a different, like 45 the next show. Like I've heard stories about people coming in, like Richard Jenny, like he did 4 different hours on a weekend. Like it's insane.
Nobody would think of doing that. It's just, it's such a mountain of material, especially that idea of, and again, I think this will get into kind of the massive differences in just kind of there was this feeling where you're like, I'll just keep throwing material out there because nobody's recording it and this doesn't last any longer than it does just this evening.
Yeah.
And so I think people just have a tendency to come up with more stuff and just kind of keep trying it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know. Louis has the whole thing about peeling the onion back.
Yeah.
Like where you can't get to that other material until you've gone through that shit.
Yes.
And I think it's true. Like it's just, you just don't know how to work it yet. But.
Right. And it is frustrating as well because I was definitely guilty on so many occasions of going up to an open mic and just doing 6 minutes that I knew worked, as opposed to doing a new 6 minutes or working on stuff that just I wasn't 100% sure on, but I need to kind of figure out. But instead I was, just going for the high, basically, and just chasing the approval kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
And it always feels good to do well.
But there's that weird feeling, though, in the back of your head, like when you do well with without taking any chances, like, I bitched out. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then also like being able to almost look all the other comedians in the eye when you went back there, and then like audience be like, hey, you made a whole bunch of chuckle nuts laugh for, on a Thursday.
Yeah.
But why would you get up there on this one opportunity and just tell the same joke over and over again? So,
dude, it's scary though. Like, but the things that can happen when you take that chance, it's
the loneliest place in the world.
It is, but it's also one of the most fun places. Because there's nowhere else I can go. But like, this is the worst place I could go.
Exactly.
Let's see what happens.
Exactly.
Here.
Yeah. Once you kind of touch the bottom of the pool of sorrow, and then you're kind of like, oh, it's not that bad. It's not that cold. I guess that's fine.
Dude, and watching people climb out of it is so much more entertaining than like seeing the 5 that you've seen time and time again.
When I was at the University of Washington, I was in a drama course, and somebody had found out I was doing stand up, and it was this older woman who was coming back to school. And she's like, I actually used to work as a waitress at the Comedy Store, or at the Comedy Cellar in New York. I was like, really? And she was like, yeah, I was like a waitress kind of there in like the early 90s or so. I was like, wow. So you saw everybody good come through. And she's like, yeah, my favorite to watch though was Dave Attell. I was like, really? I mean, I love Dave Attell, but why? And she was like, he would purposefully dig himself into a hole just to dig himself back out again. Like he would see how hard he could get the audience to turn on him, just to the point where like it was going to get violent. And then he would see if he could pull them all the way back again.
Yeah.
It's that, I think when you get to that level, when you're like, I just need to start adding kind of like donut weights onto the bat and making it a little bit more difficult, then you're like, you're just playing with a different set of cards.
It's funny because Artie Lang in his book, he talked about that, where him, Attell, and someone else went on the road together. And after like, I don't know, a month of doing it, they were all bored. They're doing like stadiums or whatever, like huge theaters.
Yeah.
And purposely they did this game where they came out and they used a bunch of slurs and like just everything they could to get the audience to hate
Just
them,
rile them up,
and then see who could win them back. and so like I can't even do the impression of it, but if you check out Artie's book, it is like,
wow.
And it's fun to actually do an iteration of that. Like when I was in Chicago, I was like, these people are never going to see me again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, let's get everybody in the room to hate me just on what I say, and then see if I can. And it's a fun. I mean, if you have no like nothing to
you don't
lose,
really have any skin in the game. Yeah, exactly.
And that's, I don't know. It's freeing too, you know. Like, and you see like, oh, I actually can, and I don't know. There's that like hanging on to needing to look good on stage is a dangerous thing, actually.
I feel like you're hitting on the exact reason why when you see comedians who've gone on Saturday Night Live in the past couple of years have tended to say something that incenses people. And I think it's because it's no longer presenting the challenge. It's no longer a challenge just to go out and make people laugh. But like, I need to make you almost feel guilty that you laughed, or like feel uncomfortable that you're laughing at it. Like, it's so good. It's like, and there is an element that I think every comedian enjoys where you're like, when you write a joke, you're like, oh, it's dark, but it's so good. Like, you can't help but laugh at that.
For
because
sure.
And that I think that maybe is playing a larger role in some comedians. Like, I remember Louis C.K. when he went on Saturday Night Live, when he was talked about, he was like, pedophilia is terrible, but it's gonna be pretty great for pedophiles, right?
Oh my God, it's their favorite thing.
I mean, it's just having that feeling of like, oh fuck, like the oof kind of feeling, as you could hear like that live audience kind of tense up.
Just the way he got there too, like the brilliance of like, there's so many people that want to do it. I mean, if anyone listening or watching hasn't seen Louis' SNL, like its opening 10 minutes or whatever, you get to this point where you're like, how did we even get to this topic? And he's just killing with it, dude.
It's like some sort of weird kind of mouse in a maze type of thing where you're like, I'm going to pick exactly which way I'm going to go. And then you get to the end, you realize it's like, no, you were leading me the entire way to get there.
Oh,
and this is
sure.
exactly where you wanted me to be.
Yeah. But I don't even know. Louis is such a, like, I wasn't a big fan of Louis. Just I hadn't seen like a ton of his stuff, and then I got into him, and like it's insane.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's unbelievable. I think somebody having like 17 years of like bad experiences with the industry just led to so much prolific work, and like the way I mean, I don't know. There are only a few that are doing it like him. And I could just talk about this forever, but
I remember I watched that on Netflix, that Live at the Comedy Store special, and I remember
it comes out.
Yeah, that was the one where he talks about the woman singing on the subway.
Yeah,
and I was like, and it wasn't cute. Like that, there were so many elements of that where it's just like him in a black shirt and just like it's a very stripped down kind of thing. I always love that he just comes out to start every special, be like, okay, sit down. All right. Okay. And then just like, we're going to do shit. Okay. And then just kind of starts into it.
If you want to see something cool, watch his eulogy to Carlin.
Oh, that's right. That is so good.
Where he talks about how George came out to his special, where he's like telling the audience to stop. Like he's like, I need to get this out. It's unreal, man. But all right, let's talk about radio and TV a little bit. Like,
sure.
I tried to look up some of this stuff. I fell short on this piece. Just gonna be honest with you. What all have you done in terms of radio and TV?
So for radio, I worked at Cairo Radio in Seattle for almost, I think, about 3 years or so.
Was that before or I guess that was after?
That was after stand-up. I had just gotten married. This was 2016.
Okay.
I started working at on a show called The Dory Monson Show, which is pretty conservative leaning. I am not, but it was just kind of, it seemed like a good way to kind of get into the radio business, which was something that I had just been really interested in the first place. I had reached out there because I initially wanted to go into sports radio, but I wound up more on the talk radio side.
Dude, you have a great radio voice.
Oh, thanks.
It's a
it's something that I never really thought was going to be an asset. And then I remember as a kid always kind of being able to, and also being able to do like a Lionel Hutz kind of thing and just kind of really trying to go for like an announcery kind of voice.
Yeah.
And then it was only kind of later on realizing that kind of not everybody did that or could do that. But it's just kind of my natural sort of speaking voice anyways. Mm-hmm. But I will say after I had that special go up on Dry Bar, going in looking through the comments, I did not realize how many people thought I sounded like a sexy Kermit the Frog, which I'm not mad at. I'm just the number of comments that are like, fuck, now I can't not hear that. I'm like, well, all right, that's all right. And when you do hear Jim Henson just kind of talk conversationally, it's just kind of a resting, sort of more relaxed Kermit the Frog, which I don't know. I don't know where that all came from.
So for the radio stuff though, were you doing like voiceover stuff? Or
no,
what?
I was really just, I was helping out. I was a talk show. What was my official title? I couldn't remember the title because quite frankly, it was a job. They just stuck me on the show, and had me do like social media, a bunch of like listener interaction kind of stuff. And then just come in and kind of comment here and there kind of during the second hour when it was a little bit lighter and a little bit less kind of politically driven type of thing. So
gotcha.
I'd make kind of like some light comments, and then I also did a bunch of audio engineering as well. So I learned how to do a lot of like cutting together sound and everything.
But you have done commercial work for acting. You've done have you done voiceover stuff too?
Yes. So, and that's one of the things I really kind of want to get more into. I built a little studio in my house, or in my closet, which works quite well.
You got these soundproofing things?
I do have those. Now, did you buy these and they all kind of came in a big pack?
It was a big like square,
right? And then you cut it open and you kind of let it open on its own.
Yeah.
And did it come with instructions and say make sure this is in a well ventilated area?
No, I didn't see it.
Okay, mine came with that because they were like just open these and then like, stick them outside for like a day. And then I went and I kind of put my nose around. I was like, yeah, those smell fumey.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, well, it's I'm getting lightheaded while I'm in here, but that's fine. That's probably just the brain trauma, anyways. So,
which we will get to in the story segment.
But I love voiceover stuff. I actually just friend of mine, a couple friends of mine had a Kickstarter that they did for a book that they finished. So I just recorded my first audiobook.
Oh wow!
With characters and
you're doing
like
it all in your place too?
Yeah.
Is it like? Do you have what are you doing it through your computer?
We have a Mac. I get Adobe Audition because it's something that I've just gotten really used to. And then I got a Mic Plus, which can actually record directly to your phone, but it's a nice kind of cardioid mic, not quite like this, but it works well enough. And then I've just kind of through a little bit of trial and error, kind of figured out how to do it. I did buy also just like a regular Shure SM58. Just stand-up microphone and a little amp so I could do shows from
you got
apartment.
The covers too?
I don't have the covers, actually.
They help, man.
They do.
Like
it's
just
nice.
For all the like plosives, which is a great name too.
I do have a pop filter. I do have one of those. I got a little kind of stocking kind of thing that comes around.
I had that for this, but
this seems like it's a better solution.
Dude, we had the amount of crap I have had to learn to do 100 of these episodes. Like I'm terrible with tech. I mean, you're in my place. I don't have very much stuff to begin with. Like I just don't like having things. And like I have more.
I think this is a safe house, if I'm not mistaken. This is possibly a burner location.
It's the actual studio somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. There's gonna be a lot of two-way mirrors right here. I'm not gonna be surprised by that. It is also audio types of equipment is also great if you find yourself with too much money and you want to get rid of it really fast.
Oh yeah.
Audio equipment, they're like, not a problem. We will take $3,000 from you right now.
It is ridiculous, but I think I'm close to where I've got everything I need.
This sounds good. This does sound good. I mean, that is one of the cool things that I loved about working in radio is just kind of getting to be around sound that much.
Oh yeah.
And starting to get a better idea of, not only vocal stuff, but just like how to kind of manipulate sound and how it works best with kind of interviewing and crosstalk and things like that. it was also a very strange feeling to immediately go to radio and start speaking into a microphone and not hearing any audience.
Oh yeah.
That's a weird feeling.
Yeah, it is.
It's to kind of go out and just like kind of try and make a joke work. And then it just kind of sits there and you're like,
what? Oh wait, I don't know if I had a stock like type thing, but
I like the kind of the crowded restaurant that was.
Yeah, no, this was.
This
There's some, yeah, we can just have this
nice.
Going on.
Oh wow,
make it sound like
now
we're
like
somewhere public.
I was about to say, now it feels like a corporate gig. So, folks, we're going to get started in 5 minutes. If you want to finish up your desserts, okay.
Well, that actually gets us into something I want to ask you about. So, corporates, you work clean when you do those. Like, you predominantly work clean, right?
Yeah.
Was that a conscious decision, or has that always just been how your comedies come out?
You know, it's a good question. I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's because I was impressed upon by Seinfeld and kind of that style that usually ended up being cleaner. Although I do remember my other favorite comedians growing up were George Carlin, and I remember my dad said, it was like, okay, you're old enough now, and he pulled out a tape of Richard Pryor. And I said this to this day, just like the funniest person I'd ever seen, the best storyteller I'd ever seen. So it just kind of, it gave me an appreciation for all of it, but also giggles when I started there. Terry was, he only 2 rules he had were like, don't get really blue and dirty and don't say fuck. And as a result, when you kind of lop out those kind of options, my material became pretty clean resultantly.
Yeah.
And then I found that I got more work, and it just I didn't find really much of a reason to change. And it also kind of fit with my image as well. I say I look like every kid that mowed your lawn growing up.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But did you, like, are there times where you pepper in dirty stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't really have much in the way of like dirty material. I'll have shows where I swear more than others. But I guess I don't really have much that is centered in like a purely dirty kind of, it would need to only be on a dirty show kind of thing, or it's something that couldn't be cleaned up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, do you grapple with it at all though? Like, do you sometimes because I'm a dirty I mean, you see a lot of my stuff, but like it's,
and by the way, I have no issue with dirty comedy, especially because, and I love it. Honestly, I love I love dirty comedy better than clean comedy on the whole. It's just that what I have had to happen to gravitate towards kind of fits my image and is kind of what I've just gotten used to. And now it's just the voice I know how to write in the easiest.
For sure. Yeah. I think whenever you're writing to fit that other mold intentionally, that's where it's a problem, right? It's like I'm dirty off stage, you know, so it's not going to be,
it's exactly part of your personality.
Yeah.
It's how you sound all the time. And it's it's how you sound all the time. Yeah. It's just this constant stream of just blue filth,
jokes,
just utter complete shit, and just depression. It's miserable. I'm glad this is gonna be a fun intervention, but
let's close the blinds quick.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's just get down to the nitty-gritty
a little bit.
But yeah, if you could just sound on stage how you normally know how to write for yourself, I mean, that's really what it all comes down to.
Yeah. But there are people that like go for dirty because they think that's what's cool, or they go for clean because like they think they have to or whatever. And it's I was just curious about this, that you like clean comedy. You're not boxed in off stage. I mean, I know some clean comics where they don't curse off stage. Like they say like if you want to be clean on stage, like that's got to be
like kind of how you walk the walk,
yeah, sort of thing, because it's going to be hard to
see that feels difficult, and it's kind of one of the things that I've wrestled with a little bit with this dry bar comedy thing, which is filmed in Utah. That it's like a purely Mormon run kind of thing.
Dude, these segues are incredible because that was the next topic I had for you. So you're reading my mind.
And that was. But it's like that weird kind of catch-22 of like, it was the best exposure and the greatest, something that I feel really good about doing. And it has only been positive for me. The only possible negative that I could construe is that it sometimes people do assume that I'm only a clean comedian.
Yeah, and the Kermit comments.
And the Kermit comments are a little bit interesting as well. I'll say it's serious. I kind of wish everybody could have one video of themselves blow up on YouTube just so they could just be privy to the comment section, because you'll see like every single part of yourself drilled upon and kind of locked in on.
I do just from this. And my listeners are pieces of shit sometimes, dude. It hurts so bad. You get it, and you're like, God damn. And other comics too. It's like you're listening. Like,
oh man, holy shit! It's like that show, but it's like with guests, but it's also like starring his nose. Like, what the hell? His nose was doing a weird thing that whole time. Yeah, actually, when I got the proof back for this Dry Bar special, and I sat down and was watching with my wife, I was like, shit, I am realizing I've never seen myself tell some of these jokes. I've never seen my face look when it tells this joke before. That's weird. But okay, I'm glad it works.
I love that you're talking about this, because I've really tried to push like watching and listening to my sets more. Over the past like 6 months. I've been doing it way more, and the little ticks that you have when you're on stage. I mean, some of the like legends and the great people where it seems like they have nothing. And I'm sure they do. Like, I'm sure if you sat down with them, they'd be like, no, I'm doing this. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. But like, there's a lot of, we see it, but then there are also stuff that like, it feels like people just like pick out stuff. You're like, fuck you. Like it hurts, man.
It's like, hey, I'm trying to do something else while I'm up there.
Yeah, you're thinking of what you're doing. That was one of my, I don't think I've had many, like at least locally, many people that have shot a special. Like what was that experience like for you overall?
So I got told about it by another comedian who had mentioned that there was this Dry Bar thing. They were looking for clean comics, and that I should submit to it. And so I kind of got lined up for a date and everything. And then on the way down, because they also send you ahead of time a little packet and kind of like a little video sort of thing of like, this is what we mean by clean comedy kind of thing. And they have sort of their things that they might find more objectionable than others. And then
what were they?
So it was a lot of things about just saying God or taking the Lord's name in vain. I mean, I don't think I said, I know I didn't say, I mean, shit, you can't say. I mean, crap, ass, damn, hell. I mean, those are all, they'll flag them. And what happens initially when I had shot it was that they were in the process of doing all of this stuff of kind of like editing down stuff to kind of make it more sanitized as possible. So you would get almost a score back to be like, this is just how clean your special really is. Like if somebody were to try and like watch the completely toned down edited version, it might be 28 minutes instead of like 35 minutes or something. Okay. So
how long was yours total?
I think 38 or 40. And I think then like the edited down version for mine, which I think is remarkably clean, was down to like 28. Like they managed to find like 12 minutes of like roughly objectionable stuff to pull out, like stuff that I talk about, like taking a shower with my wife. There was some stuff that I didn't even think was objectionable. Like there's the boxer brief thing where I talk about like pulling my pants down all the way and then like turning around to say to another guy who comes in, I'm like, oh no, sir, no, I don't want any money. I just want to pull my pants down. And then so I had seen like a little tag afterwards, like he's implying he's paying for sex in this. I'm like, whoa, I never even, what?
Yeah. It's subjective. And
exactly. So so that whole arm of it was a little bit kind of like, okay. And I could also tell that there were some comedians that this was definitely not the right vehicle for them.
For sure.
Well,
it's, my brother lives in Salt Lake, and just visiting him and stuff, like just seeing where those lines get drawn differently in that area. And I mean, Dry Bar's based out of Utah, right? So
yeah, the whole thing films down in Ogden. It's like right next to the BYU campus. It is very unmistakably Mormon.
Yeah.
You walk in there, it's called the Dry Bar with no alcohol or anything served. They have big baskets of candy in the back.
Dude, I mean, they love them some sugar. Man,
I will eat my weight in hot tamales. And I probably went up during my last special with a red tongue. Quite frankly, I mean, it's that's the way to my heart. It's just a whole bunch of candy.
Yeah,
but it does add to it that element of like, this is a completely sober audience that is not there because this is going out on a fun night kind of thing and also trying to kind of combine two different dates into one. They have an audience that shows up just to see comedy, and they go up there just to see clean comedy and kind of trust that it's going to be a good show. So they ended up being two great shows. And then at the end of the show, they actually give you a little piece of paper and write down, it's like, what'd you like in the first show? What'd you like in the second show? To kind of give our editors a heads up to what to look for.
Yeah.
Which was really nice. And then a few months later, they sent me kind of like the proof or like the edited down sort of version of what they thought looked good. And I was tremendously impressed. And then I think around December or so, January of 2018, my special was released to be watched on the Dry Bar website.
Yeah.
And at that point you could watch for free, but you could also tip as well, because they would have a thing where you like make a little tip video at the end to be like, hey, if you liked it, you could drop $5 or $10 here. And then that was kind of what I was waiting for. So
how did that turn out? Like financially, did it turn out pretty well?
Yeah. I mean, so the way that Dry Bar works is that they basically you pay, they'll pay you to do the initial performance.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get there, do the shows, and then whatever, however much it costs to produce the show, to film and do it all, that initial amount is paid down by whatever that special makes, and up to until it's completely paid off. And then you'll get a certain percentage of what the special makes afterwards for a certain period of time.
Off of YouTube?
YouTube, Facebook, it's a whole bunch of various different places, anywhere you can show an ad pretty much.
Okay.
So, yeah. And so initially when I did it was just through the website, and then it was released back on YouTube, I think about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the glut of stuff has come from. But
overall though, it's been like, would you do it again?
Yeah, I did do it again. Actually, I went and filmed another one back in May.
Hell yeah.
So it's in the editing process right now, but I think there's also just like a massive hold up deluge of specials that are kind of COVID impacted as well. So I think there's a lot probably waiting. So, but I feel really good that I did one that I feel super proud of. I pumped out another 40 minutes. This one was shorter. This one was like 30 minutes or so. And then I'm starting to write stuff for a third. So
I think though a lot of comedy is moving to that 30-minute mark too.
Yeah.
It's the way it's getting consumed is different than like, I mean, an hour in a theater makes sense, but like online and how people like clips, they like shorts. They just
absolutely.
Like, it's just social media is changing the game for sure.
Whether it's the attention span that people have in general, or just like the embarrassment of riches of entertainment options. Like,
oh yeah,
I think, I don't know about you, but usually what fuels a lot of my video kind of choices in the evening is like, what do I feel like I should watch? It's like, am I going to watch something that's gonna make me feel guilty for not watching the other thing? Like, oh, I know I kind of want to watch Stargate a ninth time, but also there's like another series that I feel like I should catch up on.
Dude, it's too many options.
It's too much. It's too much.
Fathom and Friends is a great option for anybody looking for a podcast.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, that one's really good. That is so good.
Just an easy flow. And speaking of that, if you are watching us on YouTube, please drop a comment for either one of us or a question for either one of us. Hit the notifications bell so that you know that when new content gets released, and then hit that like button. Doing so will help us with the algorithm, so this episode finds itself on the Discover page. I'm not speaking well, but that
I bought all that.
Thank you. It's time for story time.
It's story time. It's story time with Fathom. Yeah, it's story time. It's story time with Fathom and Friends.
All right, let's talk about this car accident.
First of all, that was delightful.
Thank you.
And it is interesting Yeah, timing wise, because my special came out, and then the other huge thing that I had in February of 2018, I got to open for Ricky Gervais at the Moore.
Oh, wow.
Which was a very kind of out of the blue sort of thing that I was kind of got to fill in the last minute. And it went really well. I got to chat with him backstage for about a half an hour, which was unbelievable. And definitely definitely like one of the more celebrity kinds of like, oh, holy shit kind of moments where like I'm staring at him and then also like looking at his brain and being like, there's so much that's come out of there.
That's a big, like, that's a big moment.
Yeah, that was that was very much a feeling, a bit of a high watermark kind of feeling. So I had that going, and then my special out, like I was kind of riding a bit of a high. I'd also just gotten cast to be the spokesperson for Lakewood Ford down in kind of like the Tacoma area. I was gonna be recording some spots for them. I already went and did one, and then February 23rd of 2018. I was working, which was a Friday. I was working down at Cairo Radio. Mm-hmm. And then my wife had just taken a sabbatical from her job, really because she had just been under too much stress and anxiety. And so this was like her first day, just not going to be at work for a while. She just started taking antidepressants, and then she called me and that morning as I was getting ready to leave for work, she burned her hand on a curling iron. Like she just like reached and grabbed for it and burned her hand. So around 2:00 or so, I said to her, I was like, look, I think I might be able to duck out a little bit early. Why don't I stop and get you some vitamin E oil so you can put it on your hand, just kind of help with the burn. And so that was 2:00 on a Friday. And then I woke up on Sunday in the hospital because on Friday, as I left my job, I went to go cross the street, a crosswalk in front of our building. My car was parked further down the road. And as I was crossing the street, a guy in a pickup truck coming from the north direction was going around 30, 35 miles an hour and kind of went to go around someone else, I believe, and hit me in the knee while I was in the middle of the crosswalk. And then my head hit the windshield, and then I flew, I think I'm told like a good 30 feet or so. I talked to a person who was in my office because this happened really right in front of my building, and talked to him later. He's like, I heard tires screech and I looked down and I saw your body flying through the air. So,
do you not remember like, so
I remember,
it's all blacked out?
No, I don't remember any of it. I remember a little bit. And this is kind of why I brought up the Ricky Gervais thing, is that it kind of bled into that. It took a little bit of that memory as well. Like I know I could remember that better, or I did remember that better at a time. But I remember walking through the office or walking through my hallway and kind of getting partway through. And then it feels like just like the tape just stopped. And then it picks up again on Sunday. And now I'm waking, and the week after my accident was really spotty as well. That one feels very much like, I think Christopher Nolan does a really good job of doing memories in movies where it's just like kind of a flash and you kind of just get like a moment and there's like maybe a sound or something. So it's pretty spotty throughout all of that. But I woke up after in a very kind of confused state with a body that just was completely mangled. When I was hit and thrown, the guy who was driving did apparently have some EMS training and was able to kind of attend to me a little bit on the scene. Somebody else who I worked with had just started going for a bike ride and came over and attended to me. He didn't know it was me at first because he said I was so covered in blood. He just had no idea. I was convulsing. Ambulances showed up. I had collapsed lung as well. So they inflated my lung in the field. It's one of the only scars that I have. I have a scar on the side here from where they just inflated my lung. And then they brought me to the hospital. Somebody went and got my wife. People from the radio station just went and picked her up and kind of brought her in, tried to keep her calm the whole time. Again, like I said, she had just started antidepressants, which I think was probably a massive boon because she managed to kind of stay fairly even keel throughout all of it.
It's like
Right?
dude, a lot of people have told stories on here, and this is one where it's like I haven't ever sat down with you. Like, I've heard you tell it on stage, but just the visuals of like just everything you're describing, and like how she must have, what that must have been like for her. And like, I mean, what was it when you came out of it? Do you remember anything of like, because that's like coming, I've had surgery, and so coming out of surgery, and you're like, it's
so groggy and so kind of all over the place.
Oh yeah.
One of the early things that I remember, was, so I get to the hospital, and I need to go in for emergency brain surgeries, because the main thing that they're worried about is I have a broken shoulder, I had a broken knee, and then I also had what was called an epidural hematoma, which is where you get a blood clot in between your brain and your skull. So then there's also there's that thing, that protective skin that goes around your brain called the dura. So this was like blood in between the dura and the skull, and that was what was compressing my brain. So they had to do an emergency surgery where they drilled a little plate little out of my skull, and then pulled that out to kind of basically let off all of the pressure, and then put the plate back in. And I can feel it. I mean, I can tell you that it's about the size of a bottle cap, and that when they drilled it, they actually drill 3 holes, like kind of in a triangular pattern around the sides, because I can feel them all. And then that's where they removed it and put it back in. And the other thing that is frustrating was that when you get a lot of blood in your skull, it forces your brain to kind of compress. And the only place that it really has to go is kind of down your spinal column. So the back of my brain, which is where your occipital lobe is, which deals a lot with kind of your ocular stuff, was kind of smushed. So one of the things that was really alarming was that the left side of my face was slower. Like, my eyes wouldn't quite blink all the way the right way. I couldn't really get my smile to kind of go all the way.
I think I have some of that too, man. My face is fucking weird. I like one side of it's a little slower than the other. I don't know.
I thought your whole face was a little bit slower the whole time.
Sorry. This is just fucking crazy, man. I have a million questions, but
please jump in any time, because I'm sorry. This is also like another side effect of the kind of traumatic brain injury is that it seems to have exacerbated some of the ADHD things that I've been dealing with my whole life, which can be me just kind of sometimes going off into a bit of a tangent or kind of losing focus and such. So
it's just being a comedian.
I know, that's exactly. At the same time, I was like, well, it just kind of feels like a more sort of nth version of myself. I mean, I was kind of always this way.
Yeah.
This is just now kind of a more intensified version.
Well, fuck, like, how long was the recovery? Like, what? Because sitting down with you, talking with you, I wouldn't be able to tell.
No.
And are you back to work? Like, are you?
Yeah. So I was in the hospital for a week. I have scant memories of that. I do remember like working with a walker and kind of learning how to do some of the walking things. I'm trying to kind of like do like hand coordination things to kind of make sure that was all working. My wife says that, I also had a tendency. I had a feeding tube up my nose, and I hated that, and so I was constantly trying to pull it out, which you really shouldn't do. And I did that a couple of times, and then they put me in restraints. And then my wife's like, I have no memory of this, but my wife was like, you would actually like have me come over to the bed and be like, and I was like, sweetie, can you just undo my bracelet? I just want to give you a hug. She's like, and then you would like undo your bracelet and then give me a hug. And then when I wasn't looking, you would go up and try and pull like the feeding tube out. It was such a different kind of thing. And when I talked to my wife about it, we're incredibly close. We are truly in lockstep harmony. It is the only time that we have ever been veered off onto 2 different paths, because not only was I just having to go through all of this, but there was a good 48 hours or so. This happened on a Friday. I woke up on a Sunday. They did the surgery immediately, and it was successful. But then on Saturday, they were like, we're just going to let him sleep all day. We could try and wake him up, but I think we're going to let him sleep. And my wife tells me that was probably one of the hardest days, because I would go home and I would look down and I would want to call you, but I'm holding your phone. And I know that, like, you're the only person I wanted to talk to, and you're the only person I couldn't talk to. She's like, I had to really kind of think about, like, what does marriage really mean? Like, what if he wakes up and he's a different person? What if he wakes up and he's mean? What if he's not, doesn't remember me, he has, some sort of major difficulty with basic executive function types of things. They're all of these reasons why my life could be so much worse. And it's so hard not to be just incredibly grateful and also be very comfortable talking about all of this, because it's not quite it could be so much worse. It could be so much more painful. I should be dead. There's no doubt about that I should be dead. And I've told people, make this as part of my stand-up as well. It's like, if I was hit anywhere in a 3-state area, I would have been taken to this exact same hospital. And it was, I got to do a 12-minute ambulance ride as opposed to like a 4-hour helicopter life flight type thing. So that feels tremendously fortunate in and of itself.
Yeah. One of the things I remember from seeing you live is your takeaways from this and what you tell people now from this experience, like simple things in life that they can do.
Yeah.
That matter,
Yeah. Like giving people compliments, the things that are just, that take no effort whatsoever. And that when I remember going to an occupational therapist and kind of amidst my kind of getting discharged amongst all the things, they were like, okay, so just so you know, you've had a brain injury, and when you return to work, you may find yourself saying some things that you wouldn't have necessarily said before. Like your filter might get a little bit kind of affected. And so my first response was like, hey, look, I work in talk radio and I'm a stand-up comedian. I can't imagine that speaking my mind will ever be a problem. And I was kind of joking about that. And she had also said, like, it'll get better. It'll be mostly for like the first month or so. And I definitely, for the first month or so, I was sometimes too candid with my thoughts. But there is definitely a part of me that's never repaired, though. And I am permanently much more open about my thoughts about things than I ever was before. Especially when it comes to just like compliments and telling people good things about themselves, because it's such an important thing to hear, that for me, I take such a great amount of joy in telling people that, and I can tell that they don't get to hear it nearly as often as I do.
Yeah. It's funny. I saw Fahim actually said something along the same lines recently, where he's just like, it's something that's totally free, and like it, as long as you're not creepy about it, it's because there is that side of it too. Like,
of course.
Like that's the line, I guess.
Well, and I'm sure that there could be probably tons of guys listening to be like, see, you should compliment women all the time. I told that girl at Starbucks that I totally dug her lip ring, and that I would totally hang around to show her, and I would take it out, and then now I'm a creep.
God damn it. Well, so now, like, for the most part, though, everything's...
For the most part, though, yeah, so here are the things that I still have. It was my left knee and my right shoulder. So my left knee, and as I was recuperating from that, my left knee has what was called a tibial plateau fracture. So like the top of your knee, where there's the ball and socket kind of part of it, the socket part got a crack in it. And so then my shoulder, I separated it, and I also kind of tore something here. But then between both of them, neither of them were really bad enough to need surgery.
Really?
Yeah. And the orthopedist who saw me was like, look, neither one of these are bad enough where we'll want to attend to it, because it'll just put that much work on everything else that you have. It's like, so basically you've got a bad right shoulder and a bad left knee. If we work on the left knee, it's going to put that much more strain on your right shoulder. And it very much was that Louis C.K. thing of like, you're not an athlete, that kind of thing. So we don't really need to get you back to some sort of crazy ultimate fighting type of shape. But if you're functional, it works. So now my knee clicks and occasionally we'll just say, fuck it, and just give out. And that will be just kind of a little bit of a weird type feeling. And they also told me like, you'll probably need a knee replacement when you get to a certain age.
Okay.
My right shoulder is all right as long as I kind of do just some basic push-ups and kind of keep the muscles around it strong. And then my head is the only thing that I also have I don't really have any answers about. And that's the one thing that I get kind of frustrated about, is that I don't really know ultimately what will happen with this. I mean, a traumatic brain injury is very much it's a forever kind of thing.
Without like prying too much.
Sure.
Legally, like, is it an ongoing thing still, or what?
So here's the other thing about that, is that the guy who hit me, I got a breakdown from an attorney afterwards who was like, hey, just in case you're curious what sort of recourse you could have with this person. I found out they were pretty much homeless, no insurance. They had multiple aliases, like outstanding liens, and kind of
insolvent.
Yeah, insolvent. They were like, this, you're going to try, it's like trying to get blood from a stone. You don't need to, you're not going to get any money or any sort of recourse from this person. And also I feel like at that time I was still so just focused more on anything than just getting over it, which is something that I feel like people don't realize enough about people who get involved with accidents and stuff like that, is that they're not really trying to get back to, or trying to get to like some greater place than they were before. Everybody really just wants to get back to zero. Yeah. Like it's amazing how much you just long to feel like just okay. Like just to feel just that sense of normalcy. Mm-hmm. And as a result, I know that I'll have forever a different kind of direction for my life, a little bit of a different path. And some days I'm okay with that. Some days I'm not. The days when I don't have any pain or have any issue from it, then I feel like kind of the offset is that like my overall appreciation and gratefulness for being alive is a nice gift. And if I don't have to deal with other physical sorts of things along the way, it's kind of a no harm, no foul kind of thing. But it's only when stuff pops up, when I feel like a little bit of a tinge or a pain or something, or I just have that extra little moment, or I have a doctor's visit where I'm like, I wouldn't need to make this if this hadn't happened to me. Yeah. That's when I start to get a little bit angry and a little frustrated. But to this point, I haven't really figured out what to do. I do think I found him on Facebook though. And I don't know if I ever reach out to him. Because the other thing I would say is, like you said, I don't remember my accident at all. I have no memory of it for all those days or it happening or anything. But the thing I say on stage is like, I have no doubt in my mind that dude does remember my accident. And I have to imagine that's going to be, that's going to be pretty traumatic. Like and it sounds like, from what I heard, and it's all, it's a strange thing when you try and piece together an entire event that is, you are at the absolute center of, but you have no memory of it. So
I was not expecting this part, like of the story at all. Like I was sort of like, you got some money out of it, and like the mystery guy who got away. This this whole goes very deep.
On top of that, when you talk about the overall price of medical care, so initially when this happened, like most people, when I was in the hospital, I was like, how the fuck am I going to pay for this? I knew I had medical insurance through Cairo, and it happened in front of their building. Does this make them liable for it? Or like, how does this whole work? But I got to a point where I was like, I just won't think about it. I'll just trust that it's probably all going to work out. And then my dad was in the Navy, so we have USAA. Yeah. And we had some sort of like USAA homeowners permit type thing, which like would cover person being in an accident. I was like, oh, okay, all right. So, and they're a great company. I know that'll all work out and everything. So I then, a couple months later, as I'm still kind of recuperating, hobbling around the apartment, taking a lot of naps, working with a walker and everything, I got a call from USAA, and they were like, since you are not living at the address that's associated with this, we are not going to be able to cover this. I was like, okay, what does that mean next? And it all just kind of got fuzzy, and also dealing with a whole bunch of like intricate health insurance stuff while your brain is still trying to heal took a little bit too much.
It's hard for anyone.
It's hard for anyone. Yeah. Right. But, then one day we got a bill. And I'm sure I still have it. I have all the paperwork, but we got a bill. And I need to double check because I'm pretty sure it was for $197,000. If it wasn't 197, it was at least 97. It was close to $100,000, and it was at least to that point where you open it and you look at it like, what? I'm not gonna. And it just kind of followed me for a while. That was a really hard thing as well. You know, I was trying to get back into work. My wife had taken this, huge sabbatical from her job to deal with anxiety and depression right as I got into my accident. So we ended up just being kind of these bumps on a log on a couch for a couple of months, just trying to kind of make it through the days, quite frankly. I mean, she was very helpful, very attentive. I was constantly trying to do more than I typically should. I got really good with pain. That was one of the cool things that I pulled out of it, is that I have a much different relationship with pain than I ever had before. Needles don't bother me. I was sent home with like a 2-month supply of a blood thinning little syringes, where every morning I would have to give myself an injection into the stomach to kind of keep my blood thin. And you just get used to needles after a while. People who have diabetes, I'm sure, are very used to this, but it's just, there were parts of my life that I had to get more used to than I didn't think I would have to, but I got so much perspective on. I think perspective is the word I always come back to, is that it's my entire accident is just further proof of just kind of the theory of relativity for me, where it's just like everything that happens, I'm like, relative to what?
Dude, what happened with the money though? Like,
I called the insurance. I called the medical people at one point. I tried, and I kind of explained, I was like, look, I'm talking to you out in front of my psychiatrist's office now. I'm like, this is a nerve-wracking experience. So like, okay, we'll work through this and everything. And so then I called them back like a week later, and I said, okay, I'm calling regarding this and such and such account. And this one was like, okay, let me take a look. Okay. That seems to have all been taken care of. I'm sorry. And she's like, no, it looks like the balance was paid off by an insurance company. So, and I was like, okay. I had one bill that I sent in for like $284 for some radiology thing. She's like, okay, we got that. Yeah, that's fine. That's good. So but it very much became one of those things like the end of like the Seinfeld with George's fiance dying, where you're like, okay, I guess I'll just chalk this up as a win. And as a result, that's very also kind of keeping in with what a lot of this experience has felt like. Really bad, could have been terrible, looked really bad for a little bit, and then ended up being kind of okay. And that it's a crazy roller coaster to be on. But
I mean, dude, to go from walking out of work, working with Ricky, to like, thinking you're going back to your place to see your girl, to then be laid up in the hospital, $200,000 in debt, out of like not able to work, and she's not got a job and battling depression. Like, one of those four things is that's a huge deal. To have that, I can't imagine from an emotional standpoint what that was like. And like, I can't believe you're still here, dude. It's fucking crazy.
Sense of humor.
Yeah.
Sense of humor. Seriously. I remember being in the hospital, and that of the few memories that I have, I do remember saying to my wife while sitting up in the first couple of days, being like, I'm going to get at least 12 minutes out of this. This is I need to turn this into something. This is no way I'm just going to let this just kind of this is too many of a thing not to find the humor in.
Oh my God.
She also told me that at the time that she knew that it was really me that had come back, because she was kind of nervous. Like I would kind of regain consciousness for a little bit, but not really kind of be quite myself. Or I would ask the same question over and over again because I would forget. She said that it really worked. Or I knew that you were in there when, after multiple times of you being like, what happened? I said, you were in an accident. You were hit by a car. You just went, oh shit. And that was more you than I had seen in a bit.
Oh, for sure.
And I was like, okay, there's a little bit in there. And then another time also, apparently, when I was continuously pulling out tubes and everything, they put my hand in little wrist straps. And then they also put like those big like gloves, like those big oven mitts on top of them. And apparently I turned to my wife and I went, hey, sweetie, look, kitten mittens. And apparently she was like, holy shit, he's in there. Yeah. Okay. And that was the sense of humor thing was really important. I also remember sitting up in that hospital and being like, holy shit, all of my files are in there. Like that's where all of my stuff is. And I was trying to think, I was like, okay, if somebody threw me up on a stage right now, could I do 20 minutes and think of how to logically move from one bit to the next? Can I make the segues in my head? And I was trying to like think it out and being like, okay, yeah, I do that. And then I would do that, but I'm like, it's clunky, but it's still there. But that was my number one concern though. God was that, I mean, aside from, life and relationship and all that stuff, I was like, I have to take such good care of my brain. I've become that much more protective of my brain and trying to kind of treat it well. Drinking lots of water, trying to keep my brain hydrated, wearing a helmet, when I go in the elevator. But no.
I was like, is that actually something you have to do?
No, actually, but I will say though, of all the various things that I'm still dealing with, I did go and have a CAT scan to kind of analyze what my brain looks like and what kind of the skull plates are doing. Because the one thing that I have an issue with, or I'm really worried about, is something called resorption. And it's where the cranial plate of my own skull, when they put it back in, there's a thing that happens sometimes where parts of it kind of get resorbed into the body. So it's shifting. Like I hear clicks when I move my forehead around and kind of like my eyebrows and everything. It's such a weird, unnerving kind of feeling. But yeah, really feeling like I can, like the plates are kind of not completely settled. And again, that feeling of like, I don't want to play around with this or kind of poke around. I have that feeling of like, it's like,
don't move it too much.
No, seriously.
Like, I don't want that on these cameras. Like, right? Oh, that's where
well, exactly. I deal with that every morning. I was like, in washing my hair, I was like, oh, don't press too hard and accidentally, take out all fourth grade or something.
Yeah.
But I do have like a little bit of that kind of worry, and I need somebody to just basically be like, kind of like, hey, you're fine.
Yeah.
But I also have to try to imagine myself like a doctor's advice. Like, would a doctor ever be like, so I would go home and I would just touch it.
Yeah,
poke it for, 5 minutes every hour.
Day.
Yeah. And just like really kind of noodle around with it for a while.
So crazy, man. Well, before we go, is there anything you want to promote? People to check out your stuff? Like, do you have a podcast or a website, or just your special? Like, where can people find your stuff?
If you just go to Drew Barth Comedy, or just drewbarth.com, and at Drew Barth on Twitter, that's where my stuff is. I'm hoping that my new special will come out sometime the next few months or so. But I know I was also I filmed mine at the very end of a season. It was, I think, May 22nd. Yeah, it was right after, I think, my second booster. Or my second vaccine. Because that's been another thing as well. Is that just feeling of like, my wife was very wary about me traveling. And I know that it's starting to get a little bit more prevalent. But with my brain, I don't want COVID.
No, dude.
Like I'm really I get nervous about it. I'm not immunocompromised, but I definitely think about everything in relation to my brain that much more so.
For sure. Well, I just got boosted last week.
Oh, so, sweet. Yeah. Nice. Like, yeah, I got my boost too.
Nice.
Are you double booster or single boost?
Single so far.
Yeah.
I didn't know you could get double.
If you order it animal style, they'll just they just give you a cup full and then you just pour the vaccine on yourself.
Dude, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate it.
I really enjoyed it.
People check out Drew's stuff on his website, and then a lot of his stuff's on YouTube, so make sure and do that. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to rate and review us wherever you're listening. And if you're watching on YouTube, please make sure to hit the notifications bell so you don't miss any upcoming content. Hit that like button, help us out, and comment. Ask any questions in there. And as always, follow us on Instagram at FNFpod. We're going to leave you with Jaga.
I just make the waves, I don't write them. I can hear the lyrics in my spirit as I write them. Why you wanna walk and talk just like them? I can't get caught up in all the hype and the excitement. I just make the waves, I don't write them. I can hear the lyrics in my spirit as I write them. Why you wanna walk and talk just like them? I can't get caught up in all the hype and the excitement. Welcome to my wave pool, my wave pool. 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 Welcome to my wave pool.